actually did talk about back in the days when Panasonic, you guys used a lot of Panasonic services. We always have a face tracking application, so when the people walking around, the camera actually moved. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we talk about that.
To the left.
Yeah. I'll leave you to make a start.
Okay, people, we are going to make a start. We are very lucky today to have Chris Yu here from SmartTrack. He is, what's SmartTrack? It's
The old term.
co-founder of Torrent. So I have known Chris for a number of years, and he is a ex-student of University of Waikato. He has climbed the ranks and done extremely well, and lots of money along the way. So it's a success story. And I'll leave it over to you, Chris. He's going to tell us about himself, his journeys, what's happened with the business that he did before that he was in, and now with the current business, Torrety. So over it.
Thank you for the intro. I'm not sure about we have all the monies, but yeah, it's always part of the journey. So today, we probably share a bit about who I am, my experience, my business success, if there's any, and what we're doing currently and how we see the future in terms of in my own business. So yeah, probably first started as, so I was just like one of you guys about 15 years ago. I was a student at Waikato University. I come in as international students. I've gone through all the language foundation studies as a foreign student. And then I started my business of Bachelor of Engineering degree in about 2003. And I was quite fortunate when I first started. I also involved as a research in the university as well. So I was part of the WONG group, which is, I think, still exists as a network research group. And as a student, it was quite good because you have an office in the computer building. They have drinks. You can go there with free internet. It was a big thing back in the day. So I was there for 4 years. And the things we did back in the days was quite different than it is now. So the project we involved at the university was the Connecting Schools. It was one of the Helen Clark initiative is to be able to have internet connectivity into all rural schools. So build internet site, which is helicopter need to get to, and then basically link internets back into the building where the computer science is now. So there was an interesting thing back in the days. I spent 4 years in the uni doing that. And there was opportunity comes up in about 2007, was also from the university as well. So I was part of the work placement program, which is as the Bachelor of Engineering. It's a random conversation. And then the coordinator back in the days and say, oh, there's a startup which is called SmartTrack. There wasn't a name back in the days. And say, hey, would you interested on interview? I went to the office and the first day was the co-founder, which is Alan Herbert. He's a farmer, entrepreneur, dreamer, everything you talk about it. He was one of those guys. And then when we turned up to the interview, he wasn't there. Okay, that was an interesting start. And then he called me up afterwards and said, are you interested in carry on? And say, what do I supposed to do? Right, so, and then we kind of look at it and say, okay, what do we actually do? So it's an interesting journey starting in a business which is have almost no technologies, no customer base, really just as an idea, and then we build it up in about 10 years' time. So it was me. There's 2 people who started a business, and we go to meetings, and we kind of refer to as the old guy and the Asian guy, by the way. So this is how the market get to know us. And then we shouldn't become the leading, if it's not the number 1 GPS fleet tracking business in New Zealand. Okay, so the business grew 20-fold. We was fortunate enough we won the Deloitte Award 6 times. It's important to probably win it first time, but we did it in multiple consecutive times. Timing is also everything. It was about the time which is people start considering connected fleet, connected vehicles, driverless. People want to know what's happening when they're in the office to know what is the vehicles doing in the field. The Deloitte's based on purely of financial growth. So how many fold and what percentage of your business has grown year on year? So it's easy when you do the first 3 years. The first 3 years is, we started from zero. You can have a few 100% growth 3 years consecutively. But when you get to the 5th year and the 6th year, you're already turning over a couple $1 million. It takes a lot of effort to go from 2 million to 10 million to 20 million, okay? But it's about what we have driven the business to become. And there's a lot of changes along the way as well, don't get me wrong. We're sitting here in the lecture room, we think, hey, what happened to the Silicon Valley? This entrepreneur, they kind of go and start, and then the VC comes in and changes the world. It doesn't exactly like that in the real world, unfortunately. There's about 90% of the technology startup don't even get past their 5th year journey. And there's not many businesses manage to be able to make cash positive in the first 3 years. Some of those not even at all. Think about all of your big tech company like Uber, Tesla cars. There's a lot of them, they are growing the capital and the basis, but sometimes fundamentally in a business, you need to make money as an owner, right? Otherwise, you can only survive so long. And also the journey of having external funders like the VC capital comes in, it's quite a different experience, okay? So when we get to the end of Smartrack in New Zealand here, we actually sold it to a Canadian fund, and it will manage over a particular period of time as well. It's quite different when you, as a founder and an entrepreneur, you go in and say, hey, we are here to change the world. We are here to deliver the best value for our customer. We'll go above and beyond to success. When the VC comes in, they're quite different. They're really looking into, hey, what's your accountability? What's the operational cost? How we can make profit? How can we return back to the shareholders? It's quite different in terms of the whole architecture of the business. So, yeah, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the things we do as well. So since a couple of years ago, since the Smartrack was sold, and then we founded a company called Torotique. So with 3 of us, we formed it, so I have the name Toro. And then what we're focusing on is kind of the next generations of technologies, like your AIs. How can you make artificial intelligence into more practically used in the commercial space? How can you have processing instead of pure talk about processing in the cloud? There's a lot of discussions of moving some of those processes on the edge, which is we call the edge processing. So there's quite a bit of those what we're doing today, which is I'll give you an example as well. And also I'm the executive advisor to a company called Lightspeed Graphics, and also that take computing to another level. So you would think how we see each other today, you see everything in 3D. It's because of how the light get reflected into your eye can shine through a different pattern, so it become a 3D object. And how can we actually computerize that in a computer in a really efficient way, and how we can render really detailed live photo view over your computer, but it's just over the internet. So it's a lot of real applications now. It's about finishers, about how you're buying an object which you have never seen and touched before. How can we know you're buying the furniture fit in that space exactly? How can you go and design your house, which is totally in a 3D? You don't need an expert to do that. You can do it yourself. You can do it at home. So this is what Lightspeed Graphics is doing. And their major market is actually in China at the moment. The company is actually funded by a Chinese billionaire, and they happen to have it in New Zealand here. It's because the people don't really know how much 3D graphic experience New Zealand have from the movie sectors. And then from the movie, there's not a lot expanded outside of movie. There's not a lot of things which is being used, commercially used on a day-to-day out of the movie. So they identified this particular advantage of the New Zealand talent, and then they started in here. So some of the interesting stuff I have achieved, done in the past, and I probably give you a bit of an idea why we do this, because when you're forming a strategy, when you're building a business, it's important to know what is your customer, what do they want to achieve, and what is the value we're giving it back when the people are actually paying us for the service and products. So for the OSA, which is we call the Officer Safety Alarms, so it was a challenge when police, New Zealand Police frontline, they have an old radio system, which is they have to be replaced with the new technologies. Okay, that was in about 10 years ago when GPS was relatively uncommon back in the days, and also the way how the battery and charging system works. So the police comes in and say, hey, you guys have the expertise, they've gone to the tender, we finally won the product. We have never built anything which is the people we in the past. Okay, we do tracking, we're doing vehicles. So how we start, we'll actually carve the first prototype out of a piece of wood, okay? Because we want to know what the customer, how the people, not the people sitting in the IT department of police, think the system should be. We're just giving out to the frontline officer and say, okay, this is your prototype, right? What can we do? How can we improve your life? Because this is actually quite a critical systems. We are here to providing the solution for the police safety. So if they go into a house, if it's confrontational, they are pressing this button. This button needs to work 100% of the time, need to be discreet, need to send information to the communications center where everyone set for the dispatch. So we've done the first prototype. We're really trying to understand what the frontline officer, how we use the system. And then we've probably gone through 2 or 3 different iterations. And I think this is the kind of the design phase, which is for any business or any journey, you need to look at and say, hey, not just a dream. You kind of need to go and start doing something about it. You know, not just sitting here and say, hey, we could do something. When you're actually doing it, it's not the idea with the money. It's how you approach the idea, how you make something, build something from the idea, and actually that actually become value. And then we come across and say, okay, we're first in it. The police officer, they need to be in an area. It could be in any case. At the first start, we have a LED light in the front, right? That's one of our designs. And then the officer say, if we have an LED light in the front, the target will be able to see us when we're running, okay? The LED light in the dark become a target. So then we change the LED light to the top. We change the way how the batteries charge as well, because it needs to be waterproof. Like now your phones are induction charge. 10 years ago, there's no induction at the time. So we actually have to invent an induction charging mechanism, which is what you have on your phone today. And it's a new standard now. So we start building all of those from scratch. It's not like we have a product. We're just like one of you guys here sitting in university and thinking about, hey, we could do something. But we're passionate. We believe we can do it. We solve the problem along the way. And it's a bit of a both. So we want to sell a tracking system into their cars, okay? When you go and sell something, they come back and say, well, we actually don't need it. What do you do, right? And then we slowly kind of explore in terms of what they need, right? And then they come to this conclusion and say, hey, we just happen to have a system which is end of life, and it becomes opportunities. So usually the 2 things in business is a existing product end of life or a regulations. If there's any regulatory requirements, and usually there's an opportunity associated with it. And then when you're actually creating a new business, do consider those 2 points. Don't get me wrong, things doesn't happen really often, right? But the regulatory one is probably the one you want to capture. And I'll give you an example later on about our existing products, how that meet the regulatory requirement as well. So yeah, and then after 12 months of hard work, we was basically the Innovation Park. We have our guys, they probably work until 4 o'clock in the morning just to make sure the system worked to protect our place. So sometimes you think about when you're in the business world, you're doing study and doing assignments, the real world is actually even harder. There's like, I'm sure you guys may have heard from the social media, have the Tesla CEO talk about he works 72 hours a week, doing 100 hours a week. And then you have Jack Ma from Alibaba and say endorsing the 996, which is pure work. It's not the thing you should be doing. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm not here endorsing it, but I think it's important to know if you are creating a business, there's actually a lot of hard work going into it before you see the first kind of success. And you just have to be there and continue doing it and doing it every day. and then you will get there, and trust me. The other thing we're doing is the Auckland Transport project, which is we're actually still doing in our new business as well. So what happened is Auckland Transport, that one, they did actually come to us and say, we have this really old legacy system, okay? There's so many different components. You have the information that are coming from the bus to be able to know where the bus is. And then in order to be able to just displaying some time, where's the arrival time within the passengers. That's the ultimate goal, is they want to be able to tell the customer when the bus arriving at each stop. We think it's quite simple and say, hey, how hard would that be? There's actually about 20 different systems in the meantime to be able to calculate, predict, to know which bus is driving what route in order to be able to produce those little time on the screens. So I guess what that lessons in that is about, sometimes it's a small business problem. Like you have an idea and say, hey, we want to display something. We want to be able to create some products. I think it's important sometimes you sit down to understand the journey, how you create that product as well. Hey, having a time on the screen, so that's easy. I mean, at the start, I thought the same. And when you go in, it took us about 10, this is probably the 6 years now, we're doing the same project, and it's about to go live in the next month, okay? So they actually, the pit doesn't change, but they have new LCDs and things like that, okay? We're trying to explain. It's actually quite a bit of a journey to just do a very small kind of a project. And then the other one I could probably, I think this is one of my proudest projects, is to do the collection system for Fonterra. So that was this started a journey, I would say, about 6-7 years ago when we went into Fonterra and have a look at one of their open days, okay? You could do the same when you go to a few days. You can see the tankers there, which is to have a system which is installed in the vehicle, in the trucks. What the system does, it is to automate the collection of the milk from the farms. So they have a dispatch officer, have a dispatch systems, which is optimized to run for the trucks. When the trucks get on site, the brief from Fonterra is all it does is the driver connect the hose. Everything is automated. So, and then, yeah, we have the idea and say, hey, we can probably do it better. We're a very small company in the Waikato. At the time, we only have about probably 20 staff. We compete with some of the largest company in the world, like the GEA, like your Tetra Pak, which is they have 100,000 employees globally. They are the biggest dairy producer and provider in New Zealand here for systems. And then why this little small Waikato business can possibly win their business, okay? There was a lot of questions even in our own business. But I think is the attitude along the journey, what we have shown to the customer, the attitude we believe we could do it. And not just we believing it, we show them on each of the step, from we engaging with the customer, from we actually become a thought leader in terms of how flexible we are to build a system which is meet all the global standards, as well as efficient and fast, okay? Faster their IT department, that's one of the most important things. So when we started the system, I have no idea, I've never done collection before. I don't even know how the milk collection system works. And then we explore it, we break down the project bit by bit. We have meetings day and night. We get each of the components, who is responsible for what. We show Fonterra, we understand your business, even we don't. But we work hard, we research it, we break it down, and then we find partners. It's important you understand the help is actually out there, not just you sitting in the room. You engage with the people, know what they do, you explore it, you're connecting the people which is along your journey, because that will make your journey 10 times more powerful. And then after 18 months of hard work, we installed the first systems into the tanker. It was amazing. It was one of my kind of proudest days, and so I can hand on heart say to everyone and say, my system, the system I built from scratch, we collect every drop of milk in New Zealand. We sample every liters of milk before we go into the truck. We make sure all the milk is in the right temperature. We make sure the farmer's being paid correctly. And it was amazing. It was amazing for a very small Hamilton business. And we are proudly involved in providing a solution which is actually for $16 billion for the New Zealand economy. There's a lot of journeys, a lot of compliances, a lot of long nights. But there was something, I think it's about, we're starting a new business, doing a strategy, attitude, opportunities, engagement with the customer is very, very important.
One is related to the system, but I know that you might estimate
Yep. Yeah, so this is one of the areas we identify along this journey. Okay, it's about what we shouldn't pick up. Okay, so this is the active system. This is where they're working at now. Is how they can automate those testings, right? And it's engaged with a with a company based in Denmark as a pharmaceutical business. We can test the milk in real time. Currently, they have to sample at the end of the load, and then they put it into an incubator before the vehicle go back to the factory. It takes 22 minutes for that testing paper to show whether there's contaminations, whether there's any bacteria, whether there's any drugs. And it's how we can automate that as a big part of how we identify, and the traceability as well, because the testing paper, you can swap it. Like you can. They go multiple places. They don't. They only, if you are actually being contaminated, you penalize the entire load. Whether it's just the truck or the trailer, or a truck and a trailer if it's your collection is crossed between the truck and the trailer. So the cost could be $20,000 to $40,000 just for one contamination. Yep.
Yeah. The other question I had was about the pricing or what you charge for when you get into like that project review. And I know I'm talking at the beginning, but I know it's other software schools
Yep.
who are probably undercharged, and it's because they stuff done. So how did you, is it sort of as you built equity?
That's an interesting question because our model is quite different. So our model is based on a recurring revenue. Okay, so yes, you're absolutely right. When we go into this journey, we have no idea, right? We have no idea. But there is always the conflict of how much you should know and how much you want to be fixed in terms of pricing, right? And that's the challenge, and that's the challenges in Fonterra in this particular case. The cost of the project was probably $20 million, okay? Unfortunately, we did have to fix that price, at least 80% of it. So you have a very small kind of wiggle room, how much you can overcharge. And I guess that's kind of come to, when you do it so many times, it's your gut feel. Unfortunately, to actually say that, you roughly have an idea how big that project is. And I think that's probably the differentiation between, like, when you first as a student and when you finish, go to the university, and then you come out and do a system. We have a relatively good idea how much that costs, and then we just work with Fonterra and say, hey, what scope do we have to include? There's challenges, don't get me wrong, what is included, what is not included. So, and then we replace an existing system as well, just for your interest. So the existing system provided by Bartek is a German company. It took them 6.5 years to put it in. And then they fell twice during that 6.5 years. So we was quite nervous when we first when we first signed the contract and say, what the hell have I committed myself to, right? The task becomes so daunting at the time. But I think it's always that case. You do need to get yourself out of this comfort zone each time. When you feel you are not comfortable, when you feel you don't want to do it, you do need to commit yourself to give it a go. Because each time you do one of those things, it pushes yourself further, another step ahead. So it just, in your life, it's just so many of those walls. You just have to keep knock them down. If I don't want to make this phone call because I don't want to talk to that person, you have to sit down, take a breath, and make that call. And it's that fear you have to continue to commit yourself and say, I'm out there anyway. It actually doesn't cost you anything to make that phone call. It doesn't cost you anything to give it a try, right? But you could cost a hell of a lot if you have never done it and continue sitting in the same place. Yeah. So what we're doing now as a new Torotech business, okay? This is an interesting opportunity as well. So we first started Torotech and said, hey, we've done a lot of connected stuff. We've done a lot of like big business. We've my past life involved in SmartTrack. We deal with majority of the councils, utility companies. There's a sector we have never gone into is gaming. Gaming is actually massive, like in terms of the economies, inside of the people involved in it. And what do we do? And then we go back and then we talk to a lot of people and say, hey, what can we do in the gaming sector? One of the really interesting things come up, it's actually a regulatory legislated regulations. There's a self-excluded legislation in New Zealand. So if you go into any pokie venues, there's so many different type of venues. You have those pokie machines you can see in pubs and clubs. When you go to the restaurants, there is a little pokie room which is inside the restaurants. You see them on the side of the road. Those pokie venues, they actually have a regulation as for the staff. They need to allow people to go in and exclude themselves if they think they have addictions in pokies, okay? And then you think about a student like you guys, you finish university, you work in a bar, how can you possible to recognize there's about 100 people on that list you have never seen, you have never spoke to, you don't know what they look like, don't know their body shape. How could you possibly enforce that legislations when you actually have to? So we come across that particular opportunity 18 months ago, and I will say, well, this is probably the best use of facial recognition system. People talk a lot about this facial recognition for law enforcement, okay? This is probably one of the most practical use outside of custom when you go past checking your passport, right? And then we found there's actually a lot of challenge because you're in the customs, you have a bright light, you're standing there, you never move, you take a photo. If it's not, the screen will tell you to be in the right place. We are in a so dynamic environment. You walk in, could be a dark rooms, you've got lighting issues, physical connections, how can we make the system to work? And it's very fortunate, one of those things which our can-do approach we learn in our life, and say, yep, I think we could do it. So we bold enough, we engage with some of the largest trusts, like your community, New Zealand Community Trust, Grassroots. There's a lot of activity and sport in the country actually funded by the pokies, including your Balloon Over Waikato. The major sponsor is Grassroots. They make the money out of the pokie machines, and then they have to distribute back to the community. So and say, yep, we can do it, and then we go back and we look at it and say, okay, what do we actually have to do to be able to provide a solution? So this is your kind of your solving problem, and say, yep, we know there's opportunity there. We know there's no systems in place. How do we need to do it? Okay, so we'll break it down each of the components and say, you need camera. We need to have something on the venue to be able to connect to all the cameras and send it back to our backend system, which is where our each image processing comes in. And we need to have a system, which is the recognition system, right, which is be able to send a photo and recognize who you are. And then we need to have a database for what are the people are excluded in that venue. So we'll break it down, each of those. We find partners, like for example, the camera. We partner with Panasonic to actually provide in the camera for what we do. The node of the hardware, we partner with a local company here. They actually be able to build a custom hardware for our purpose. We partner with Microsoft for the recognition system because they are the best recognition software in the world at the moment. You will see if you take the airplane next month for the, you will see in the Kira magazine, there is a Microsoft and Torotech article telling about how this solution solve a problem as well as provide social good as well. There's a full-page article in your Kira magazine if you take the next flight in June. And then the concern database. The databases need to be compliant with the DIA requirements as well as the Ministry of Health. So we will go to talk to those regulators and say, hey, we need to build something, what requirement it is. We consult with the Privacy Commissioner. We do all of those stuff. Hey, we just like one of you guys. It is about you have a problem, go out there to find people be able to help you to put it all together. The support we do in-house, this is what we're good at. We develop software, we provide ongoing development. Almost the entire thing, we'd probably just do the last bit. But it's the ability for us to be able to put this all together and sell it as a solution for the customer. So I'll give you a bit of a next bit of the idea. Yep, so when the people go into the venue, you'll be able to see it have the entrance. We have cameras inside the entrance and inside the venues. We go to our nodes, upload all the data, and then we use Microsoft and Azure, which is process the informations. And then we're back to the security, and then we go to our recognition system. We know where's the right face or wrong face. In the last 12 months, just for one company, which is New Zealand Community Trust, they're the largest trust in New Zealand, we processed 16 million faces. And then out of the 16 million faces, we have found about 50 excluded people that shouldn't be in the venue, and they have gone into the venue. And also the outcome is, out of those 45 people, we have ever seen 4 people come back again. So what happened is the system actually worked for stopping those people going into the venues, okay? So every time people go into the venues and they have addictions, they actually have family issues, domestic violence, there's a lot of social issues created by gaming. So we're really kind of proud in terms of what we have done. So I'll give you a bit of just a link if it comes up.
The Guardian is a facial recognition system that monitors players entering a gaming room and checks their images against the database of excluded problem gamblers. A small percentage of the population who have problems with gambling can voluntarily opt to enter a system where they will be excluded from venues.
Most people play the pokies for entertainment, and the industry and venue operators acknowledge there is a small few gamblers that do get affected by harm, and this system will be another tool in our toolbox to make it more efficient to deal with those issues.
When a person enters the venue, an image is extracted from a live video stream. The images are sent to the cloud for matching against the National Problem Gaming database. If a match is identified, it's sent back to the gaming management system behind the bar, where the bar staff would then approach the player and confirm the identity of the player, and if the player is the excluded person, they'll be asked to leave the venue.
So facial recognition has been widely used in airports and other places. The innovation here is the cloud-based solution.
We don't believe there's any privacy issues because all of the people in the database have volunteered their information.
The facial recognition technology is something that will help the person who has developed a problem with gambling and either voluntarily themselves or with a counsellor ask to be excluded from venues. And it's important that facial recognition technology supports that, because we can then, it's not whether you remember a person's face or you happen to look at a list, the system recognises the person and then the venue can act, and that means we can all be a part of a person's treatment.
The push for the development of technology was from the sector itself, looking for better ways at which we can invest or assist to help those that do need help. We absolutely want to do everything we can to help those that can't quite help themselves.
Cool. So this is kind of a good example of
The Guardian is a
it's kind of relatively unusual. We have every party kind of work together, you know, from the hospitality people at the venues, for us as a provider, the industry, the regulatory, as well as the treatment provider, which is the people go out there provide consultation to the problem gamblers. It's very unusual we have the ability to actually put them all together. I think this is the power of us being a small company, and just don't be afraid and say, hey, we're engaging with the big guys. You need to look at it in a positive way. You know, the big guys give you scale. The big guy give you credibility. The big guy pushing you forward. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone call and say, hey, I need to talk to Microsoft because I have a particular services. They actually quite like to hear people like yourself, because they may have to deal with 100 of them, but they only need one of them to make their system be, you know, a global success. So they are just like you, hunting for opportunities. So what's the market? Why are we doing this? So the Guardian system, which is we call the facial recognition system, there's about 1,472 venues in New Zealand here. And Australia is even bigger. So each of those will probably we probably get a revenue of $20,000 to $30,000 each, right? And it's a massive opportunity to multiply the numbers. And Australia is massive. Australia have less regulations. They have more problem gamblings. There's big issues in New South Wales and South Australia as we speak. So it is opportunity, and it's a system, but also timing. So timing is important. The technology, it's at this mature point, we can deploy it in this particular scale. So yeah, this is our key focus in the next coming years. So I guess the most important point is, like, we are a small business, you know, but we achieve great things. And what is there to make us to be who we are? It is to look at those opportunities not in its isolation, right? Looking at those opportunities and say, hey, if we do this, what does that mean to us 5-10 years down the track as well? So you will look at like 10 different opportunities, people brainstorming, you know, and then you look on TVs, this is something you should be doing, friends will tell you. And we'll identify if we have a software as well as the hardware component that will build our business model of we selling hardware, we make some money on day one to keep our business going. The software part can provide a recurring revenue, which is for us to fund our business in the longer terms. So it's how we target those opportunities, and you are not starving on day one. It's different than some other startup that's just focusing on software. They rely on recurring revenue only, and takes a long time you build up recurring revenue to be sustainable enough to fund all of your expenses. And then think about each of the new opportunity as its own business, have its own P&L. How can you make a small project sustainable in about 2 to 3 years' time? In my past life, when I was involved with SmartTrack, you know, we grow from 0 to 50 people. It's interesting in my journey is what this actually means when you have 1, 5, 10, 15. When you get to about 50, turnover $20 million, you actually start having a lot of overheads. You have a HR team, you have your finance controller, you have your CFO, you have people like me, just does all the talking. And then you have the people go out, there's a lot of overhead you have to build into the business. So this round, we're looking at say, how can we make a company that run efficiently? So, which is why I identify each of the project, they have its own stakeholders, because the feedback from the customer is when they phone up, they don't want to talk to the call centers. They don't want to talk to the support team. They want to talk to the people they have always been dealing with, and the person can help them to solve the problem quickly. That's their goal. Why they call you? Because they want a solution, right? So we're addressing why they want a solution. And then because we need to provide, it's something we have to provide. So we're kind of keeping the right size for each of the business opportunities. And then we're being agile. We're focusing on, hey, we are a small company, are agile and fast. And this is our competitive advantage. And then once again, is this recurring revenue because you're providing a service. Just make sure any business model and say you're not getting all your money on day one, because otherwise you're going to starve for the rest of your business period. And culture, once again, culture is very important as part of the business. I probably never noticed that as ever as we are today, because when you have a corporate life and then you're bought by a VC fund, you look and say, hey, this is good. People are actually paying your bills. The culture in a VC company is different than an entrepreneurial business. In entrepreneurial business, your driver, is what you love to do, because you go to work every day because you love to do what you do. You get up in the morning because you know you want to get up and solve a problem. The VC doesn't feel the same. So in this round, we really want to keep this dynamic, energetic, fast-paced kind of culture in our business. And that should drive a lot of productivities. We allow people to talk to us about dumb ideas. And then because 1 out of 10 dumb ideas is a good idea. So empower them to be able to come up with a solution themselves. Because just like when you have a 2 years old, they don't know what to do. But if you empower them to be able to let them to do more, they'll be a better person growing up. Instead of you have to give them rules, and this is everything you need to do, you mold them. So in our business, we want them to be the leader. We want them to be the leader, but not the manager. And also customers and partners, which is I talked about earlier. We are small businesses. We can't do everything ourselves. And so how are those customers and industry leaders, and how they can help us to bring the product to the markets? Can we leverage the Microsoft Sales Channel? Can we partner with people that already have really high market share within the particular sector? So we look at those where we develop the product as well. We involve them, make them part of our team, make them part of the ecosystem, and that's how you kind of grow bigger and bigger. And then doing a startup as running a business is not easy. So you really need to love what you do. And so many of those days you say, what the hell am I doing what I'm doing? But it is that love that get you going. That love get you over a lot of hurdles, which is you don't foresee when you're first starting it. And it's the passion, which is to continue doing every day and get you better skill, better people, better business. So, yeah, that's me. Any questions? Yep.
So you guys are currently doing the facial recognition software for the gaming companies.
Yep.
What would your calculation be for somebody, like say that wants facial recognition go past, like say, what if you decide to grow big? What if you grow make? What if you put on some big freaking glasses or like something like that?
Yep.
How would you calculate that?
It's a very good question. So we come across that as well. So the facial recognition system itself, the model actually develop better and better. They can actually, if you grow a beer, right, it's how we identify people and say you have a particular facial changes. The computer actually don't see it like that, funny enough. The computer see it as, for example, we break down the face into between 200 to 400 different points in our training model. And then we are not saying that this person is absolutely it's the person. We will tell the venue manager and say there's a chance. The chance of that person is 95% or 99%. They still have to go back. They still have to go and find the person and then verify their IDs to do the last mile. But answer your question is the computer, they're developing the model actually better and better to cater off those. You're wearing a hat, they will be able to identify you. Yeah. And we're going to Sky City tomorrow or this afternoon. You can see the two little funny camera, which is mounted outside of the casino entrance. And then those are our two little funny camera. And also there's other camera inside as well. So, because we can't stop it. Like if someone wearing a hat to go like that, we can't stopping them technically, but the security guard can, and other people be able to spot them as well. So. Yep. There you go. Hey, sorry. How important to me the system is. You mean system, you mean computer system, or you mean human system? What is your definition of system?
My understanding is that it's like it's overall picture, like
The overall picture as the business. Yep. I think what influenced my thinking, if I answer that question, is what do we do to actually provide something my customer wants to pay for? Okay, I think that's the ultimate goal, is if I produce something, even I ask myself that question all the time, would I use it? Would I pay for it? Would I want to put money toward it, right? If as I do a particular speech, would the people buy into my ideas? You know, that's important in terms of my thought, whether it was, you know, how we conduct a opportunity or business. Does that answer your question? Yep.
Because you guys were like quite innovative and this is sort of like a new technology, what would you say was the most like challenging aspect? Was it maybe like, did you guys find it hard to kind of get into market to like convince people that it was necessary, or?
Go to market, it's always the hardest one. Go to market is something you have really little control of, and then that's we can like as an engineer, as a developer, we can build anything, almost, right? But what is the market wanting to pay for and buy? And that is the hardest bit. And the hardest bit is to get someone to pay you $20,000, especially when you're developing software. Like when we did the Frontier Solutions, to pay us $5 million as deposit, we had nothing. Like we didn't even have hardware. We didn't have software. Like that's the hardest bit. And it is how can you get people to pay you that deposit while it's only a trust. There's nothing else. There's a contract signed, but hey, what do you do, right? It's nothing than just they trust you can deliver. Same as the facial recognition system. We have nothing to begin with. Why all of those people come onto the journey with us is because they trust us. And I think that's, I think just like how you, and yeah, that's probably the hardest bit. What can we make them to trust us and they're willing to pay us the money? Yep. Yep.
Because you have like a system that's people volunteer to stop themselves from like gambling. On the chances someone like got through without being recognized, what kind of like liableness is that put on you? Like, is it your responsibility to do?
That's a good question. Ultimately, we are not reliable, and because we are providing a system to assist the venue managers. It's about the fine print, you know, what you actually provide. So the penalty is massive. Like, for example, New Zealand Community Trust, they're $200 million business. They have one gaming license because one gaming license operates all of the venues, right? Same as Sky City. They just need to have one person walk into the venue and she actually pick up by the DIA, the Department of Internal Affairs. They do mystery shoppers, by the way. They go into the venues, and if you didn't pick up that person, you will lose your license, and it's a criminal charges. So whether we're fully liable, we are not, but we're providing the best endeavored and the best possible technologies available to help the venue managers to stop that person coming in. Yeah. Hope that answered your question. Any others? Very interesting question. Yeah, so really complementary strength. I think that's kind of important when you're working with other peoples. So we have 3 in my past life, which is Alan and myself in SmartTrack, really complementary strengths. So I'm really focusing on engineering, and Alan really focusing on management and being the thinker. Okay, so I learned a lot from that, from him along the journey. So in our new business, so we have myself, which is I'm more on the business opportunity perspective, and then we have another co-founder is a technical genius. Like he's the guy who made everything possible, right? And then we have an operations guy, which is James McCosh. He is probably the best customer support person I've ever seen, because when we sell a system or promise something or people believing our story, we need to deliver it somehow. So those 2 guys, as well as the team behind them, enable me to do what I want to do. And once again, their support is actually what matters. You know, my job is just the easy part, and so get someone to sign the dotted line. It's hard when you don't know what you're doing, but delivering something they've never done before, and those people with complementary strengths within your business, it's so important. Don't hire the people they all like you, because they will end up just like who you are. Yeah. Yeah. You can't eliminate competitors, and especially in what we're doing in the gaming sector. There's an element of industry protectionism as well. They don't just let random people come into your business, or they don't want people they don't know, right? There is a level of natural industry protections, right? You just have to innovate faster. You just have to work faster. Even you talk about patents, you talk about IPs and things like that. It is hard, because how are you going to enforce it? You know, if it's a big company like IBM come and sue you, what are you going to do? You know, it will only slow you down. So I'm not saying you should break every rules, but I think it's that if you continue to innovate, and more important, make sure your customer are well looked after. That's people, human interactions. It's really important to keep the long durability of the relationship in the business, because and the human element, you know, it's not a social media thing. And those things actually don't change. You build up enormous amount of goodwill along the journey, and you need those goodwill at some point, because sometimes your system may be down and your pricing want to change. You accumulate a lot of those along the journey, which is better and more than your competitors, and then that's what they will continue to stick with you, even you're more expensive. And I think that's the human part of it you have to also recognize when you're building a business too. So.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Hope you guys learned something today. So, yeah, thank you.